important to be looking at women as a force within the global economy and looking for those patterns and dealing with those patterns.
Women represent one of the great emerging markets in our world today, if we look at it that way in terms of driving growth. As The Economist said not too long ago, it's not China, it's not India, it's women.
Women are 50% of the global population, 40% of the workforce. They are, as Melanne outlined, I think, the emerging economy. And I would take issue with one statistic. The Boston Consulting Group may have said 14 trillion. I think we've estimated that women's consumer power is now about 28 trillion.
There are really serious barriers to unleashing the potential that could be realized from this kind of participation. Some of those barriers, depending where, are social norms, practices and customs, the lack of ability to own property, to inherit, obviously tremendous drags on potential. Others are discriminatory laws and regulations that impede the kind of opportunities you heard again in the debate yesterday, whether it's women or not women, the kinds of oppressive regulations that make it extremely difficult to unleash entrepreneurial potential.
I feel very strongly, and I think the evidence is there, that legislation matters for overcoming barriers.
I'm not saying all legislation is bad. I'm saying legislation when it's focused on achieving a very pointed outcome for one group, I don't think is right, but leveling the playing field is important. Chairmen say, yes, I've seen the difference that having one or more women on my board, and we do really need more than one, but to the dynamic of the boardroom and to the challenge level. And I know it's not because a woman is so much more brilliant than a man, it's more the mix of personality, the mix of experiences. And I think it's opened the eyes of both chairmen and the executive search community as well to the idea that this is sort of the starting point of having more diversity on boards as well. This is not the end. And I'm not really interested in the appearance of change, just a few women at the top helping the dynamic in the boardroom, but really women at every level, because I think then you do get the impact of a really balanced team.
For vast proportion of the women around the world who are at an earlier stage of not yet looking necessarily at board membership, they're looking at, can they inherit when their husband dies? Can't change that without laws. Can they own property in their own right? Can't change that without laws. Can they have access to a bank account? Can't change that without laws. And I think when you need those tipping points, maybe also on boards, it's the result of having quotas which has perhaps tipped us into taking on this issue in a more central way.
I have to say it so carefully, the description about that war tactic, the phalanx formation. So you can see why I have to say that very carefully. Where we're actually working on, moving forwards, it's kind of like a shape like an arrow of individuals where you're sort of fighting against the enemy on all sides and on top, because you might get something coming down that you haven't spotted, but you're moving forwards. And I think that's what it feels like in the UK now, but we are a long way further along than some of the emerging markets that we've discussed.
I would like to just perhaps conclude with that reminder of where we are on the continuum around the world on women's issues, but also perhaps say that if it's been a miracle, the changes that have happened, and that a lot has happened, but if it's a miracle, I don't think it's yet one that can cause us to be, in that lovely English word, gobsmacked with all that's gone on. We have to still be impatient for change.